let's get to the guitars. So I'm gonna mute the drums and bass, and let's have a listen to our guitars. Some chords. So we had two mics on each of these guitar parts. It looks like we had a 144 and a Fox. And the Fox was a dynamic mic MXL had for a while that we used a lot back in the day. And the 144, I still have a couple of those. I love them. They're a little on the dark side, but they sound really cool. So we have a left and a right coming out to the console, and there's a couple things happening. There's an 8803 Neve EQ, and that is feeding a pair of Golden Age Comp 3A Mark III compressors. And I love both of these things on guitar. But let's just hear that with none of that. And the parallel saturation I'm gonna turn off as well. So this was just our guitar sound that we originally recorded. I'm gonna go to the verse. Chords. Not a bad guitar sound, but it felt a little typical classic rock type guitar, and I did not want that. So I'm doing some drastic EQing on the Neve to try to give it a little thickness, a little hair, and make it sound a little less classic rock. And that's what this sounds like. And the bridge. Here's without it. With it. And I did all that EQing in context and just started really grabbing the knobs on the 8803 and moving them until I found that fuzziness, thickness that I was looking for. And I like that where it sits. So when we hear our rhythm section together now, bass, let's see, all of it. Everybody's starting to have a little bit of character. The last thing on the guitars is the parallel saturation, and if you've seen a couple of the other recent videos, you know I've been experimenting with this quite a bit, and that is a TPS2 from ART. It's a mic pre, and here's the guitars. And it just thickens them up a little bit. There's two settings I use that are both voiced differently, and I use that as an EQ, and I pick whichever one I like. It fills it out, and it does give me a little bit of volume, but it also just makes it feel more, I don't know, bigger to me. And I like that. So now with that in, here is our rhythm section. Guitars are bone dry. There is nothing on them. Now, one fun part with these guitars is the solo. For whatever reason, when we tracked this, Ernesto tracked full takes of the rhythms, but he played the solos on both sides. There never was a, rhythm guitar under the solo and then solo. When we did our original mixes, we cut out one side, brought one to the middle, and kind of did that traditional solo comes to the middle, put a little delay on it. It's just bass and drums underneath and the organ. And it was cool, but when we realized that there was a whole other, second take of the guitar, we decided let's just pull them up stereo and let the solo be left and right instead of dead center. And it just felt fun, and we liked how it just, I don't know, we felt like it played better with the overall vibe of the song and what we were going for than doing the traditional guitar center in the middle, lose the rhythms. So we went ahead and left it there. And each time we hear it, we laugh a little bit, which is great. So last part of our instruments, we have an organ pad and some keys going on. So here we can hear the organ pad on this first verse. And there's just different pads throughout the whole song. Bridge. Well, there you can also hear the piano that comes in. We introduced the piano part on that bridge. And then on verse 2, it's organ and piano. And the organ fills out. You'll hear that once you notice it's there, you can hear it just kind of spreading out and filling. The piano is a support part. If you're not listening for it, you're not necessarily going to hear it right away, but it does support the drums because it's it's doing the shuffle along with me and helps give some support there. Let me just pull all that in. Guitars, bass, drums. Just kind of helps the motion kind of keep moving, which is cool. There is another organ part on the bridge, which we'll get to in a second. But that is the core of all the pieces. The bridge we're going to break down on its own. Let's go ahead and pull in some vocals and let's talk about Hacksaw, the lead vocals. Brian is easy to work with. He sounds killer all the freaking time.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop.
All right, so that's the final vocal. Let's turn off everything we're doing to it. And here is just the dry lead.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see.
And Brian sounds good. He's one of the easiest vocalists I've ever worked with. It's effortless for him to get a good recording, and he's really good at manipulating the microphone in his voice. We had two mics set up, and I can see they were both MXLs at the time, and I think the V89 and V87, and I'm using more of the V87. Those are coming out to one channel on the console. Then they get sent over to the Cush Clairphonic, which is my absolute favorite EQ for vocals. It's great. Then that goes to an IGS tube core compressor on a faster setting, but it's not hammering. It's just constantly working. And then that goes over here to the Dayking FET 3 that is set slower with an auto release. Also one of my favorite vocal compressors. You can't mess something up with the Dayking. But that combo, I really like how that works. So when I turn just that on,
rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you...
It definitely brightens it up quite a bit. You can hear the compression working, but it's not getting hammered yet. And then I am pulling a little bit of low mid from Brian.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop.
Because in context, that wasn't helping. So I'm just pulling that on the Trident, which is at the beginning of the chain. So I'm pulling that low mid before it goes through everything. Have a couple things for effects. First off is an in-the-box short delay. Let me go find that. Logic tape delay. 39 milliseconds. There is some feedback, but you're not going to hear it. And this is just for... This is going to act more like an early reflection. So here's off.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop.
On.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop.
And it just helps give a sense of space to the vocals. Then out here in the analog domain, I've got the TC Electronics D2 with the slapback set at 110 milliseconds.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop.
And no reverb. Other than that, those two things, Brian is dry. So let's bring our instrumentation back in here and hear this in context.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop.
I'm going to turn the effects off.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop.
Brian sounds so good, and with a little bit of that compression and EQ, the dry actually was neat as well, but I wanted it to be a bit more festive, and that just felt a little, I don't know, plain to me. So the slapback delay and a little space around it just makes the whole thing feel like it's got more of an air to it, and I like that. And that's the main part of our lead vocal. So let's do some backgrounds here. Take a quick listen to Aubrey and Nicole, who are awesome. And where are they? Here we go. So let's listen to the bridge section. So here's our bridge background vocals. So all of this mixing was done in the box and just comes out on a stereo channel on the board that is getting a tiny bit of EQ here, and it's going through the overstay or VCA just for some final leveling, but it's not getting hammered there. Pretty much all the actual mixing was done inside the box. So you can hear on those ahs, I'm using a little bit of the ensemble from Logic, what I think is really cool. Those vocals are also going to that same short delay that Brian is getting, that 39 millisecond kind of early reflection delay. And then on top of that, another new plugin that I just got is the Vox Widen from Sonox. Having a lot of fun with this. I guess it's the Vox Doubler. I picked a widen setting. I'm having some fun with this too. This is going to get used a lot more. I really like what it does. And it's quite tweakable as well. All of those in-the-box effects are coming out one stereo channel up here on my effects return on the console. So that's the basic of everybody. So now let's get to the bridge, because this is a cool arrangement, some cool arrangement ideas I think we did to help open it up, and there's some more vocal things happening. So let's just turn everybody on. I want to listen first off to the bridge as it is, and then I want to go through and turn on what it was originally on the first mixes. And here's our bridge section. Or our breakdown section, actually. Let's go to that.
Yeah, we be rocking around, rocking around, rocking around.
So you can see there's a lot of stuff turned off here, namely guitars. Now, originally, we had a rhythm guitar through this whole part. And I'm just going to turn all of those on so you can hear what it originally was and what were in the original mixes. Everything else was the same. All those the keyboard parts, the other organ lead that you hear, which I'll solo up in a second, all of that stuff was in there. This is originally pretty much what all the parts were.
Yeah, we be rocking around, rocking around, rocking around.
So all of that stuff was happening at the same time. And as you can hear, it is quite busy. We also don't get the dynamic break that we really wanted. The rhythm guitar, you know, we hear so much of that through the whole song that we were just like, it needs to open up here. So the first thing we did, and this was Ernesto's idea actually, was cut the guitar, which I was like, hey, I got no problem with that. And that opened up space for the vocals, because there's the call and response with Brian and the girls, but also these keys elements. You hear this.
Yeah, we be rocking around.
For that piano part, you can hear my cowbell solo in the background. Now there's like depth. There's a few things up front, like Brian's front and center. The toms are kind of right there. The girls swim around in there a little bit. You have that organ that comes in, and the organ pans. We actually have it the first time on the left, and then it's panned to the right on its response, because it's a call and response a little bit too. So the call on the left, the response on the right, and turned down. And then the call comes back again on the right, turned up. The response doesn't happen the second time because there's another part that comes in. We actually use the guitars. There were 2 room mics that we had on the guitars that just didn't work. However, the perfect time to use them for us was on this bridge. So we lose the guitars, let the other elements kind of come back and forth, left and right, and then we took those room mic guitars. Now dry, big. And that's the 3 elements that we used right here. Right? Left dry, close mic, big. And that's what walks us back out of the bridge. So we get rid of the guitars to make some space, and then we bring back the elements of them left and right, kind of behind, distant mic, and then a dry close mic, and then the 2 big stereo. And that's how we get out of the bridge. And let's take a listen to this whole break. It's a breakdown, but it's really, we kind of turn it into a bridge.
Yeah, we be rocking around, rocking around, rocking around.
Hold on, we got to play that organ thing. That is just too cool, this run. And this was our friend Gary Pritchard who did this. This is just cool. He also played all the organ and the piano parts on this one. To get that distortion, I am using the Logic Grit guitar pedal. And I love that. I use this one quite a bit, actually, if I'm not running something outside. And I just thought that worked on this. And it cuts. I mean, it really sounds distorted soloed, but in context that some of that gets eaten up with all the other elements. But that's how we opened up that section to have some movement, a little bit of depth, get away from everything, and then it makes the end feel even bigger because we had some dynamics. And we pulled something similar on the intro, because it originally started, again, with stereo left-right guitars. This was the intro once the guitars came in.
Rocking.
Except not that delay. So we turned those off. We sent the left guitar to a delay that comes on the right side.
Rocking.
And that just set it up so when the guitars hit, it felt like we had a bam and boom, we're rocking into the tune. No pun intended. I want to quickly go over the mix bus so you can hear what's going on there. First off, let's turn everything off. There's 3 things: Allen Smart C1, Rupert Neve 542s, SSL Ultraviolet EQ. Here's with none of that on.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see.
It's not a bad mix, and I think that's important, that if you turn your mix bus off and the whole thing falls apart, you might have some things out of balance. But then again, if it all sounds good with it on, who really cares? But we're gonna turn on one at a time. So let's hear what the Allen Smart sounds like.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see, every couple tries to stop. Rocking around the Christmas tree, let the Christmas spirit bring.
I do like what this does with the mid-range. I wouldn't necessarily say it's colored, but somehow the way it shapes guitars and snares and tightens the bass up, I just absolutely love. That stays pretty consistent. I almost never change it. Occasionally I'll change the attack time. Most of the time it's on the slowest attack, fastest release, 2 to 1. I'm somewhere between 1 and 4 dB a reduction, and that's just where it works out. And that is all being fed from the master fader. And that stays the same. The Rupert Neves, however, these will change quite often. where it's at now is my starting point. So here's without.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop. Rocking around the Christmas tree like the Christmas.
What I love about these, even in this setting, you hear a little bit of size. It kind of makes it feel a little bit rounder. Like I said, that's my starting point. As I get through a mix, sometimes I'll experiment. I'll add a little bit more saturation in there. Maybe I'll add more saturation, but pull the blend down and see what happens. It's all 100% based on the source material and what the overall song needs. If it's already a dense mix that has a lot going off, I'm probably not gonna add a lot of that. It's not gonna need it. The same with the silk. Right now, I'm not using any silk whatsoever. Sometimes I'll start with it on, but usually that I'll wait till I get about halfway through a mix. I'll just go, okay, let me see what's happening there, and I'll see if I like it better or not. In this case, I didn't use it. All my EQing is coming from the ultraviolet.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop.
Subtle. I don't have any one of these pieces of gear adding a ton. They all have their little bit of thing, and together they make something happen. But something I love about the ultraviolet, the high and the low band are very Baxandall-like to me. It's very sweet. You set it at a spot and you turn it up, and it just feels like it's kind of pulling out an area of sound as opposed to a EQ set to a specific frequency or frequency range. I almost always have that going. I will use the silk in conjunction with that sometimes because it does a different thing, but I almost always have that top and bottom going. The mid-band, as I get through a mix, if I feel like the overall midsection, the high midsection is maybe a little flat or could just be a little more exciting, I'll boost a half dB or a dB and I'll sweep it around, 3, 4, 5K, somewhere in that area, and see if I like it. Sometimes I might go up to 6K, I don't know. But I'll just kind of sweep it around and see if it helps. And if it does help, I'll leave it on. If I don't need it, I just turn it back off. So let me see if I can turn these on and off quick enough. We'll start with them off and then I'll kick everything on.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop. Rocking around the Christmas tree like the Christmas spirit ring. Later we'll have.
So again, kind of like the drum bus, it's not a gigantic change. It's a couple subtle things that together add something that I like. I like the fullness from the 542, I like the focus from the C1, and I like the openness of the ultraviolet. I think it's a really cool combo. So that does it for our mix. I'm gonna finish this off so I can print it. When this is out, I will get links in the description to where you can listen to all these songs at. It's gonna be part of the songs from the studio. This is our holiday edition of that. So it'll be part of that playlist. I'll get those links out soon. Thank you all for joining me on these videos. Thanks for joining us on all the live streams. Links to those are also in the description. I'm gonna let the song play us out. You guys, happy holidays. Stay safe. Keep making some music. Delilah's talking to me. I gotta go.